Hello, Paula. Can you hear me?
No
Good,
problem.
thanks. Here we go. Okay. I just shared with you in the Telegram um, chat, in the one-to-one chat, not the
Yeah.
class chat, the one of the documents that I mentioned that I'd prepared, and I think this one will probably be the one that's most useful to actually read first. And if you're not super interested in going into detail about the, you could say, prehistory, the context even in which Tantra, you could think of how it developed contextually. So it's not actually, let's say, it's not conventionally directly history of Tantra. It's kind of prehistory of Tantra in a way. And sometimes the question comes up for me, and perhaps also for you, people ask something like, when did we begin to have, or how did we begin to have some of the aspects of the human condition that we know of? So the competitiveness, the sense of scarcity that leads to aggression, the rise of what you could call patriarchal institutions, all these things that are, let's say, aspects of how people see the world today.
Mhm.
So, in a way, all of that is relevant to the role of Tantra, what Tantra is responding to, what it's giving answers for, what it's giving solutions for. And sometimes that context of why is Tantra even useful, right? And also, so that's one aspect. Another aspect is when people ask a more question about the history of Tantra, like, did Tantra come from matriarchal cultures in ancient times? Is it like a remnant of ancient matriarchal culture or shamanic culture? So that question also exists because that is one of the theories about the origin. So relating to, especially perhaps those two things, this text that I've shared could be of interest to, let's say, enrich your knowledge in those areas. And yeah, and it can be a resource that you can share with others if you have students that take a deep interest in that aspect of things.
Mm. I have read a book I read a book many years ago by a guy from Chile, and he writes about his mother, and he speaks about the ancient school there for wise women.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it's a novel. He says it's a true story, but he tells the story of his mother when he was young and how she's in love with a man who is, I can summarize, unconscious about how to like deal with women and sexual energy, and he's toxic and his toxic masculinity. So then she seeks help, and she's guided to a man who lives alone in a mountain, and he says, I can help you. I have to stay 1 year. You learn from me, and you have to go through different tasks. And so basically, she does it, and it's about overcoming her ego, learning to work with her feminine and masculine energy. And then in the end, they have a ritual in which they unite their energy, like a maitreya. And it's very much a tantric path. So I was like,
Uh-huh.
it's very interesting. It's
Interesting.
the same process, like also Daniel Ogier describes in the
Uh-huh.
tantric quest. So you go to
Yeah.
master to a tantrika and stay with them and go through different stages of facing your ego
Yeah.
until you're purified, and then you can unite with the master. Yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Interesting. Yeah.
tried to research more on it, these shamanic practices, but I never found
Do you
more.
know if it was related at all to the Mapuche tradition? There's
I don't know.
a
I have to see it because I borrowed the book from someone and I don't have it. So, but I know the author and I can try to find it again. Yeah, but it was
okay.
playing in Chile, and they talk about the and school. He says once there existed a school of the wise women, and it doesn't exist anymore, and only very like the masters have become very rare and hard to find nowadays. And yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was
Okay.
researching if he does workshops, but he did workshops, but only in Italy, but now not anymore. So yeah,
Okay. Okay. Do you remember the author's name?
not right now. I'm very bad with names. I have to check. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a guy from Chile, Chilean guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an author that has written about perhaps similar subjects, but I'm not sure what his where he's from. Alberto Villoldo. I'm not sure if that's how
Yeah,
you
that's the
pronounce his
one.
name. Yeah.
I think that's him. Hmm.
Okay. It seems from a quick glance at his information about him, he's Cuban born, but perhaps
Ah,
he,
Cuban. Okay.
but he may have lived in Chile or studied with the Chilean traditions. He's written about Andean shamanism more broadly, anyway. So, but that you remember that's the guy, right?
It sounds Alberto Villoso.
Yeah, with two L's. The
Yeah,
first VI,
Villoso.
two L's, Villoldo.
Um, Avioldo. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced.
No,
Yeah.
that's not. I'm not sure. No, I think that's a different one
Okay. Okay. Doesn't matter. I was just
because there wasn't existing much about him. And I had to
okay.
go to his website, and it was an Italian website, and yeah,
Okay. Okay.
Four Winds. No, I think that's someone else. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But it's some years ago that I researched it, so maybe um, let me see if he wrote a book about this.
Curiously, I think Alberto Villoldo even did uh, not so much a direct translation, but a rendering of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali.
Mm,
Kind of putting it in a framing it in a different language, um, but new interpretation of it, you could say.
mm.
Is there
No, that
anything that
must
you'd
be
especially like to?
a different one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd especially like to cover today?
Not really. I practiced 42 times today.
Let me just
The
introduce you to a couple of my cats here. I don't know if you can really see them well.
It's a
They're
bit
kind of,
blur. I see some
yeah,
red fur and white with red
yeah,
ears. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Sorry, you were
Mine.
saying you practiced today, 40
Yeah.
something times.
I did 21 time and then it wasn't enough, so I did another 21. And then in the
Just,
second round, I really started the energy to feel the energy flowing. Like I started to feel changes. And what I also did, it works better with the light now because I just allow the light to wherever it wants to go. And so like the light is everywhere and I don't try to like put it in my spine or whatever. So that's more natural. And then it really start the energy also to flow. Yeah.
wonderful.
Nice.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, it's good to do some experimenting, let's say, and see what works for you. And so it's good to know you've found a potent way to practice it. That's great.
It's more allowing than using my mind to guide it, no? No.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I also know when you do circle breath, it's really like at one point, it starts to, the circle starts to flow naturally also.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's one of the challenges I think that people have when they start doing Kriya type practices, pranayamas, which involve moving energy. Unless people are very visual, and perhaps actually, in some cases, perhaps being very visual makes it more difficult. But for many people, the lack of clear vision of what they're doing perhaps puts them into a state of more effort, like they're pushing for something to happen and feeling frustrated that they don't know if anything's happening because they can't see it. And maybe the feeling of it is more kind of vague as well, you know? So just as you said, allowing it, creating the openness for your intention to be able to have effect, that willingness, that availability, that openness is more important than the pushing that we might find ourselves doing if
Yeah.
we're not
And
careful.
yeah, I managed to let go of my mind trying to do it. And then even if I couldn't see the light, it was like trusting that it flows anyway, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
more like that,
great.
no? Yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful. Okay,
I
good.
think it's also different. I'm more relaxed if I'm not sitting in front of a screen.
Of course, yeah,
Yeah.
doing it by yourself, and that's a different ability to focus. So, if you've already done the practice today, do you want to do a short round, or we can maybe come to some mantra practice? Because I think that's one of the
Yes,
things
that's
you
also
wanted to
nice.
review as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
look pretty. You want to sing a mantra with us, Aya?
Beautiful.
She's the
Is
one
there any?
feeding the kids when she
Oh,
was.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Sorry.
It's okay. Is there any mantra in particular that you want to review? Do you remember which ones we've already talked about, practiced, which mantras we've covered?
Uh, well, we did some mantra, but I don't remember the the text of it. I'm
Yeah,
generally very bad with remembering words.
that's
I
okay.
think
Do you
I
remember
have a more
the
visual memory. So, yeah.
do you remember the purpose of any of them? Or it's not, I mean, I'm not trying to test you. I'm just curious, first of all, if there's any you especially want to review or learn.
I don't recall
Okay.
any.
Okay. Do
No.
you know the mantras of the elements that are used often in yoga for the associated with the chakras?
The um lam vam. This one, no. Ah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So
Uh,
something that's worth mentioning relating to those mantras, these bija mantras of the elements. It's something that sometimes it's nice to be able to offer people a new perspective on something they're already familiar with. So many people will have gone to a yoga class and done these mantras that they are told these are the mantras of the chakras. And so it can be nice to just give a little correction. They're the mantras of the elements because the elements are associated with the chakras. Then
mhm.
you do the mantras in association with the chakras, but they're really the mantras of the elements.
Okay.
And there's something that is interesting to discover from looking at some of the older texts about yoga and mantra, such as Shivananda. I think even in the same book that I've mentioned recently, Shivananda's book Kundalini Yoga, which was published before Yogi Bhajan developed his own brand of Kundalini Yoga. He speaks of these mantras of the elements
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they are transliterated is instead of what we tend to see, which is LAM, LAM, VAM, VAM, RAM, RAM. Instead of spelling it that way, they're written LUNG, lung,
Ah,
VUNG,
yeah.
lung.
Yeah, I know this from Sanskrit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this pronunciation creates more of a nasalized vibration in the skull.
Yeah, it's like
It
Portuguese,
vibrates
no?
differently.
The, yeah, like the Portuguese nasal. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They also
So
do it like
the
this, no? Yeah, when they say wang, wam. Sorry.
and so the that's okay. The the difference in where the vibration happens in your body is significant because perhaps especially in the case of bija mantras, because there are mantras that are verses of texts. They are repeated because of their meaning and the influence they have on our consciousness, because like an affirmation, right? You're focusing on a meaningful phrase, you're repeating it so often that it kind of embeds itself into the subconscious and starts to repattern you from the level of meaning through the mind and going to deeper layers. In the case of bija mantras, they are not words, they are just vibrations. They are potent energetic signatures. And so in the case of these mantras, it's more important that they are actually pronounced correctly so that you're getting the correct vibration. So being aware of this subtle difference in what people tend to do, what people tend to teach in relation to these elemental mantras, and the way that the pronunciation, you could say it's not exactly VUNG, or rather, LUNG, VUNG, RUNG. It's not exactly that, and it's not exactly LAM. It's somewhere in between, which is why in some cases it's transliterated one way, and in some cases people have transliterated a different way, because it's a subtle it's a subtle difference between what we might immediately assume, and so just experimenting with the vibration, so you find that kind of in between these pronunciations. So you're not trying to be too exact with like lung, because that's how it's written in the Shivananda book, lung, and you're not doing exactly as it's written in most books in modern times, lam, with an open ah. There is a place where you, like you've been doing with the pranayama, by experimenting, you find what works for you, what's potent, what feels natural.
Yeah.
To check.
And okay. And so there are sometimes subtle differences between what the popular teaching is and what is not only what is traditional, but what can be more potent, more empowered.
Yeah.
Would you like to do a quick run through the chakras with this shift in pronunciation? And it's the same principle for each one, because the only one that isn't a 3-letter word with an A in the middle of it is Om, the one here. Like all the ones up to the throat, the 5 elemental ones tend to be in modern yoga spelt, with the A in the middle. And in the Shivananda, in these older books, not only in Shivananda, also in the first tantric books that were translated by Jonathan Woodruff, Arthur Avalon. In his books also, these older translations, you find this spelling.
Yes.
So,
And the crown is Aum.
well, in some
Of
traditions, you actually don't intone anything at the crown. You just go through the five elements and then Om at the third eye, and then silence at the crown instead of using an intonation of a mantra. So it
but
depends on the tradition, but
yeah.
in some, there's no mantra used, except you could say, like we did with the pranayama, where you're focusing with your attention on the infinite Om, but you're not reducing it through sound into an audible vibration.
Hmm. Isn't Aum and is Om not actually the the
It's
summary of because like and Om is just Aum, like in one sound.
Yes. Yeah, there was a little bit of cutting out of the sound, but I think I follow what you were saying. You're saying that it's a single sound rather than a split of the A and the U. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the Aum becomes the Om eventually, no?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
yeah.
Uh, in Sanskrit, in Tamil, in Tibetan, you've got they're written the same way, right? So it's when people have westernized it that they've made this distinction between OM and AUM. These are just different ways of writing in our alphabet the same symbol.
Because I use it to I go from the heart, I go to the root, ooh, and then I go to the third eye, and yeah, and
Yeah,
so it's more specific the way I use
yeah,
it.
that can be good too. I mean, there are similar things in Tibetan Buddhism where you use syllables in the throat, heart, and third eye, for example. Yeah, yeah,
Because it's not so easy to sound the actually from the root. So when you sound the ooh, it's a good practice to bring the sound really down. Yeah.
great. Yeah, yeah.
I learned this with Chai, Diane. So
Uh-huh.
different sounds like e, and o is more o, yeah. I'm not,
Great. Nice.
yeah.
Using also the lips closed with an inner vibration can be a powerful thing to explore. If you guide voice work with other people, this is something we can just talk about briefly, and then we can do the element mantras. Sometimes, the voice work that I do in the retreats where we basically just we do a little bit of the basic components of the grace flow practice, and then with the shruti we just do some vocalization without really any form, not vocalizing anything in particular. Many people find that super helpful as a meditative practice, but people who are unfamiliar, whether it's with mantra or with just doing this kind of practice, they can feel a little bit inhibited by being asked to vocalize without specifying what they're vocalizing. They can feel kind of insecure about letting the voice out. And so something that people can be taken through as an exercise to get them ready for this vocalization, this, let's say, freestyle vocalization, is to ask them to do the vocalization of the vowels, which most people have done at school, and it feels kind of familiar and easy and fun in a way. So after doing this vocalization of the vowels that are very open and effortless, then bringing them to the vocalization without opening the mouth. So after the vowels, you can just kind of go
Yeah.
and feel that vibration inside. And then after that, it's much easier to let the voice spontaneously play. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to have that as an exercise for people that feel that's very new to them and maybe they're not doing it right, this kind of thing. So it can be a good introductory
Yeah.
practice. Okay, so we can do the elemental mantras, 3 repetitions in each chakra with Om at the third eye, and then
Mm.
non-verbal Om at the crown.
Okay. Mm.
Lang, 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 vam, 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 ram, 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 yam, 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 hum, 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 om, om, om.
Mm.
It's a very simple practice, but
Very
a
powerful.
nice, yeah, it is. It is. And especially if you've been doing as you have the Kundalini Pranayama, so you've been doing a practice of bringing your attention into the Sushumna Nadi, that makes it much easier to have an effective practice that works with the chakras because you've been interiorizing your attention, you've been already keeping that energy channel conscious, active, empowered. And so this practice, you could say, works in synergy with that, by having that already developed. Something else I was going to share. Yeah, the one of the principles that is found in the tantric teachings is the microcosmic, macrocosmic equivalence. You could say a mirroring of heaven and earth, and a mirroring of cosmic principles in the human body and the human consciousness. And so in a way, the human body is seen as a map of the cosmos, a map of the solar system, a map of the totality, and in a kind of fractal way. So, and you find this also in the Taoist tradition. You see some maps of the body and the energy body. You see these representations of cosmic principles in the body, in the energy body. So the function of a mandala is similarly a microcosmic representation of the totality. A mandala contains elements that represent the totality. And so, in a way, this work with the elements in the energy body is this work of honoring and attuning to principles that are not only in the body, but are macrocosmic principles, universal principles. You're attuning to the totality by working with these elements in our energy bodies. So we're attuning to the totality because these macrocosmic principles are present in us. Another thing we're doing is purifying the component elements, like literally what we're constituted of. We're going to the core constituents, the elements, and bringing them to their original vibration. In a way, you could think of that as cleansing karma, cleansing what is condensed around the core elements, dissolving the condensation, the accumulated experiences, and therefore the things that are creating new causes and effects over time, dissolving those aggregates and bringing ourselves back into a, you could say, pure vibration, in the sense of being free from effects of the past, cleansing karma. In relation to this idea also of the importance of using the elements for this kind of work, the many of the Siddha traditions have Om Namah Shivaya as their Maha Mantra, their great mantra, and the syllables Nama Shivaya, the 5 syllables, represent also this mandala of the elements being vibrated, and therefore evoking the vibration of the totality in its purity. So it's also a kind of an elemental purification.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
These syllables, Namaya Shivaya, do they have a meaning, each syllable? Or is it just the vibration that
It's
relates to an element?
I don't have a totally well-informed answer for you on that. I can tell you they're not like the bija mantras that are just vibrations. In the case of Nama Shivaya, they are they're syllables that may have you could say that they could each be considered a component of a longer, like even though they're not bija mantras, they could be thought of as components or stems, in some sense, seeds of longer words, you know, roots of words that have some meaning. So they're not words, right? They don't have in themselves a whole meaning, a translation, but each of them could be considered to be part of a unit that has a translation. But I'd have to do a bit more research to give you a more complete answer on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Some yeah, no, that's all I can say for now. There is relating to purification, which is one way to think really of the practices. In some way, they're all purificatory practices. Many of the practices, kriyas themselves, many of the mantras, the idea is that you're releasing yourself from what's become aggregated in your energy system, in your psyche, and you're liberating yourself from these things. The word mantra itself implies that you're liberating the manas, the mental body, you could say, or the mental field. So a mantra that is specifically associated also with purification is a mantra that is visualized and intoned here in the throat. It's associated. Do you remember which one I'm referring to? It's associated with Shiva And one of the stories of Shiva as the one who has a blue throat. There's a story of the creation of the cosmos in which you could say in the primordial waters of existence, they were being churned by both the devas, the devis, and the asuras, the infernal, you could say, or demonic forces. They were all kind of churning the primordial waters. Actually, let me reframe this story. As the primordial waters were churned, you could say this primordial bringing up from the potentiality, from the chaos of as yet undefined creation. This stirring led to the arising of toxins, of poisons, and this risked destroying everything. Right at the beginning, these toxins that were brought up from the depths. And so, in order to prevent the destruction of all existence, the story tells that Shiva drank the primordial waters, the waters of existence, like the whole thing. And the toxins remained in his throat and were purified through his body. One version of the story says that his consort, and I don't remember if it's a particular aspect, whether it's Parvati, which form that is described in this story, but she, in concern that he would be intoxicated and would die, held his throat so that he couldn't swallow, and that's why his throat became stained because of holding the toxin in his throat. So there are different versions of the story, but he became known as the blue-throated one, Nilakantam, which is also the name of one of the highest peaks in the Himalayas, I think quite near Mount Kailash. Nilakantam Peak. Shiva is associated with these highest peaks as residing at the crown of the world. And so Shiva is known as Tirunilakantam, the great blue-throated one. And this is used as a mantra. You intone the mantra and you visualize a potent blue light that is purificatory in this space. And the meaning of the name for the throat chakra itself, Vishuddhi, the word Shuddhi relates to purification. And it's the ether element, so you could say it's before the densification of the elements, right? The etheric. And so you bring yourself to focus on the etheric, this blue light with this name of Shiva and his capacity for transmutation, for purification of everything, associated with this name and this story. And this mantra comes from the Tamil tradition, and was shared with me by Dattatreya Shiva Baba. Again, the pronunciation, rather than an M at the end, it's a slightly nasal, a sort of NG kind of sound that goes to the back of the throat, kind of into the skull. So
Yeah.
it's not easy to translate into accurate pronunciation. So you can think of it as having that. It's not exact. It's usually when you see it written, it tends to be written with an M, but the intonation, the vibration is this more nasalized sound. Tiruni lakantam, tiruni lakantam, tiruni lakantam, Tirunīlakantam, 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 Tirunīlakantam. There are aspects of the religious teachings, the religious figures that are universal. And this story of Shiva is, in some ways, you could say, like they're Christ-like in the what quality is evoked, what quality is celebrated in this story. A being who would sacrifice himself for all of existence, and in a sense, that's what the story is telling. That he would drink these cosmic waters to purify them. So it's self-sacrifice, but also pointing to the capability, this, you could say, omnipotence, the capability of the primordial being, the pure beingness to purify everything. So it's pointing to in some sense, divine power, but also knowing that Shiva represents pure consciousness. You could say that consciousness is self-purifying when it is free from its aggregates, mental aggregates, personality aggregates. So pure beingness is inherently free, and everything can pass through it. And in some sense, by passing through pure consciousness, it becomes again pure consciousness.
Tirunīlakantam.
Tirunīlakantam. I'll write it in the chat.
Tiru, double E.
It's
Vakantam.
usually written like this, but can be written without the H. Tiru al.
Tirunīlakantam. Because I have to listen to it, otherwise I forget it.
But I've written it slightly differently as well, second time, just so you see the subtleties of the pronunciation. They can be written with a T or with a D, because it's not exactly either of them. There is, if you put the T,
it says it's
when you curl the tongue back a little bit, so that the T, instead of being at the front of the mouth, is slightly further up, like your tongue is actually up on the palate. Duh, duh, duh. So
at which
the T.
The T
T
in
or
the
D.
beginning.
Duh. No.
I'm
Near
gonna
the
swallow
end.
my tongue.
Kantam. So the last
Kantam.
syllable, dum,
Kantam.
dum. That last syllable, dum.
Dum.
That T,
Dum.
or potentially you could pronounce it as somewhere between a T and a D. So it's a more palatal sound.
Kantam. No, okay, kantam. Sounds Indian.
Yeah.
Okay. It says it's a karma removal mantra.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
I can show you a picture, I think.
Have you like recited this Tionela Cantam mantra many times?
Yeah.
And how is the karma removed? Does it show up in your life all of a sudden so you can work with it, or?
Yeah, I would say so. It's at times when you're, let's say, feeling that there's something from your past is you're living the consequences, right, of previous actions. You could say mistakes. This was the yogi who taught me the mantra,
Mhm.
Dattatreya Shiva Baba, Dr. Bhaskaran Pillai.
Very white teeth. Wow. Yeah.
So there are times when we are worrying about like what's going to happen, and at a time when we're worried about some outcome, it's a good time to, you could say, purify ourselves from whatever ways in which our previous actions may contribute to an undesirable outcome. And what we're focusing on, these are ancient principles and they've come up in modern times in the idea of affirmations. In fact, Shiva Baba was one of the people that really brought these things into popular awareness through Wayne Dyer. He's known as Wayne Dyer's guru, and Wayne Dyer popularized affirmations. I don't know, 2 or 3 decades ago, I guess. So it's one of the things that we personally can do and that we can help our students or clients to do is to be aware of how they're investing their energy. One of the ways of defining Tantra, I think a good simple way of defining it is that it's learning to manage your life force effectively. And most people might think that means how do we use our sexual energy? And that's an important part of it because there's a lot of potent energy associated with with our sexuality. Just a second, there's probably a lot of background noise now. Motorbike and dogs all of a sudden.
And my cats, when the dogs are barking, my cats go like,
Uh,
dogs, they do.
Let me just, I just need to get answer the.
Hello, how are you? I don't know about you, but to me, it's like today is the best morning ever. It was raining apparently at night, and then you wake up in the morning, the smell of rain,
Have
and
I
you
got
get
something playing or have you?
excited for winter.
Suddenly,
Huh?
I'm hearing
No,
audio.
me.
I had lots of YouTube videos open, so I wasn't sure if it was me or you. Um, okay, so is there anything else you'd like to cover today? There are more mantras that we can talk about, but there's also, we could give them more time next time instead of trying to squeeze them in today.
I would like to
Uh,
talk about the numbers, like the meaning of the numbers.
yeah,
108 is like covering all numbers. It makes
yeah,
a 9. And then
yeah,
why is it like 3 or 6 or 5, you know? Yeah.
yeah. Okay. It's something that I would need to review to give you a good, rich
Yeah.
answer. But certainly, as you said, the nine is a symbol of the totality. So you see it in the 108 and also 1008 in some cases. And so it's that combination of the one and the eight creating the nine is significant. Comes
But
up in the 36 tattvas as well, the nine.
and the
Um,
one, it's like one is oneness. I thought the zero is that's probably nothing, or the circle is the totality, and eight is infinity, no?
yeah, and many of the numbers that we use are they're regarded as Arabic numerals, but just see what the numbers are in Sanskrit. So I'll share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the two looks a lot like our two. The three looks a lot like our three.
Yeah.
Curiously, the five looks a bit like our four,
Yeah.
and there isn't that much. The zero, if you see, because of the 10, the zero is the same, but the eight, because you were saying about the infinity, in Sanskrit it's not the same. Nine is the same except in reverse, pretty much, right?
Looks
A
very
little bit more.
similar to, I know one is the other way around. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has a significant let's say a bend in it, but it is similar. But Sanskrit has these bends, so it's that also distinguishes the let's say the simple form of the nine and the bend in the middle of the one. So the Arabic, probably the eight that we use is more similar in the Arabic numerals. There may have been some influence from Sanskrit to the Arabic. It's, people tend to say we use Arabic numerals, but they may have had influence, first of all, from Sanskrit. What you were wanting to know about the significance, their symbolism, right? The energy they
Yeah,
carry. Is that it?
so why do you recite like three times or seven
Right.
times?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, just like what I was saying about the elements creating together totality, right? So you have all the constituent elements of creation, and you have the whole. It's what a mandala represents. It's the same principle as the macrocosmic being mirrored by the microcosmic. And so in different contexts, let's say different elements are pointed to, different elements are used as representations of the whole. So, for example, in a simple system, you have a polarity representing the totality, right? So Shiva Shakti, consciousness, and the dynamic aspect. In some sense, the static and the dynamic, or the potentiality that is completely unmanifest, just pure consciousness, and then the energy in its dynamic form. So that's a kind of most basic mandala, this two that is representing the whole. Then you have trinities that again represent the whole. They're carrying out the same function of representation of the totality, but in different contexts, it can be useful to, let's say, point out different elements. When it comes to, for example, what generates life at the biological level, you need two elements. You need the masculine and the feminine sexual components, and that will produce life. But if you're looking at life in a more, you could say, more broad, abstract sense, you could say that there is the principle of creation. There's also this principle of existence or sustenance. And then there is the dissolution. Then you've got three principles. And again, this comes up in the symbolism of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, representing these three. So it would seem to be contradictory if you think in very absolute terms, like which number represents the totality. If you're pointing to the constituent elements that represent the totality, it'll depend on the context. So 2, in some sense, is an adequate mirroring of the totality. 3, in a different context, is again an adequate mirroring of the totality. And you can do this on all sorts of levels, So there isn't a single number that is the one that is the right. And 1, you could say 1 is the representing non-duality. So in different contexts, there are different ways of using numbers to either represent fragments, or to represent the whole. Saud. And 8 is used in repeatedly also in the traditions. You find it in Buddhism as well. But I'll come back to you with a more answer.
Does it have, because you never do like 2 times or 4 times or okay, you do maybe 6. No, it's more like 3, 5, 7. Maybe has to do with the energy geometry also, no?
Yeah, so one way to think of it also, there tends to be, although it's different in different traditions again, and these things are not, let's say, they're not consistent across the different traditions. In some traditions, you'll see a description of 5 different core, let's say, layers of the energy body or the manifestations of consciousness into energy qualities or sheaths, so 5 or 7 energy bodies. So if you think of each repetition, in some sense, it's reaching to a different layer, a different depth, And so you go from the physical to the subtler, and the subtler and subtler, all the way to the causal. So one way to think of it is that you're going deeper with each repetition. And again, the simplest would be, let's say, the heavenly, the earthly, and the kind of sub-earthly as 3 layers. And but then you can go kind of think of the different energy centers and the different elements. And so there's different reasoning behind the repetitions, but usually it's the same principle again. It's like you're touching all the different layers of existence. But you can think of the layers of existence in different ways. Like there are different maps of existence. In the Gayatri mantra, for example, one of the most important mantras, you begin with Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha. And those are the 3 layers, let's say, or 3 realms of existence that are being evoked. And the Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu mantra, where you're evoking, and it's the one that I translated in the verses that I shared with you on Friday, where each of the chapters of the sutras ended with, may all the beings in all the worlds be happy and at peace. It's basically a translation of Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. It's an invocation of, let's say, peace for all beings on all planes. And it's repeated 3 times. You say that 3 times, implying also that you're reaching each of the 3 planes of existence. You have in other traditions, for example, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, 40 as a very significant number comes up, 40 days, 40 nights of fasting, of purification.
Yeah.
So different traditions will develop a slightly different focus. The Babylonian tradition worked with 12s rather than with 10s as a unit of measurement as well, So there are variations, but the universal principle is that you're working with the totality. You're working with the constituent elements of the whole. That's the general principle that comes up, even though it can seem contradictory, that you could say that the number that is given importance varies, but the reason for the number to be given importance is that it's the constituent elements of the totality. That's, you could say, a general principle. Another example would be the 4 directions, so 4 being representing the totality, except that in some shamanic traditions, rather than just the 4 directions, you've also got up and down, heavenly and earthly, combined with the 4. And so there are different, which is the same also with the cross, representing 4, but then there's the center of the cross, or there's a 5th element associated with it. That's the point of balance.
Mm.
And then you have the use of these numerical representations as symbols of power, used also in magic, used for protection, purification. And again, because you're evoking the totality, the power of, effectively, you're evoking the power of the source, the divine, by working with the totality of elements and the elements in balance.
Okay.
Anything else you'd like to share or ask before we complete? And we can come back to in more detail to the numbers in a future class.
Yeah. Oh, it's enough to digest now.
All right. Big hug.
Paulo?
What's that?
Paulo is here.
That's Paolo?
That's
Hey,
Paulo.
Paolo. Sweet.
He's 7 months old. He's already huge.
Yeah. Gorgeous.
Yeah, he's very nice character. Non-aggressive.
Sweet. All right.
Yes.
Big hug to you, Paula.
Okay. Thank you
Wishing you a
for
lovely week. See
today.
you Friday.
See you on Friday. Ciao.